First grade, today we're going to be finishing our awesome leaves that we made last time, guys. If you are not finished watercolor painting your leaf, if you have any white spots or if you have any spots that are sticky, you should get some water out and some watercolor paint and finish that to a level 4 first. Then if you would like to take an oil pastel or maybe even a black Sharpie, if you ask Mrs. Hedesheimer, you can go around the outside of your leaf with a color or 2 or 3, and that will make your leaf stand out from everything else on your paper. That's called having emphasis on your artwork. That means that one thing is most important and it stands out. So if you need to do that first, please do that. Then you can go ahead and do the next step. So the next step, there are 2 parts, and you can kind of choose which order you want to do this in. The first thing we can do is we'll have these paints at our table. These are regular temper paints, and you don't have to add water to them. So you do not need a water cup for this. And we're actually not going to use a regular paintbrush either. We're going to use a broken paintbrush. If you don't have a broken paintbrush, you can use a regular paintbrush and just use the end of your regular paintbrush, okay? So what we're going to do is we're not using the bristles that we usually paint with. We're using the broken ends. And these are circles. So we're going to actually do some printmaking today. Printmaking is where you stamp a color down instead of painting, going back and forth. So with these colors, you're going to need a paper towel to clean your paintbrush off, your broken paintbrush. And what we're going to do is a little bit of dot printmaking. So I'm just going to go around the outside of my leaf with some dots. Now, if you decide you don't want to do this, you do not have to. This is just a choice for you as an artist. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a color. I'll start with pink. I'm just going to dab it on the end there, and I can press down and lift up to make a dot. Let's see that close up. So I made a little dot. Now, you don't need a big giant glob on your paint stick, and you can actually keep going until you kind of run out of paint, and then you just dip it right back in and start again. And I'm going to make a kind of a border or a perimeter around the outside of my leaf. All right, boys and girls, I went around my entire leaf, even the stem, with these pink dots, and it looks awesome. So now what I can do is I can clean off my broken paintbrush with my paper towel, and I can use a different color now if I want to, or I can find another paintbrush that has a smaller end because the one I had was pretty big, and I can go around with a second color if I have room. Now, I ran out of room over here, so I just skipped this area. So if you have a spot where there's no room, just kind of skip that spot and keep going. So now I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to use this dark blue, and I'm going to go all the way around with these smaller dots. Girls, I went around with my blue, and I'm having so much fun with this dot art that I think I'm going to go around with some lime green. Now, one thing that's really cool about this is that we're printmaking. We're not painting. So every one of our dots looks a little bit different and has a little bit more or a little bit less paint on it, and that makes it more unique and more interesting to look at. So now I'm going to go ahead and go around with my green. All right, how about some yellow next? All right, boys and girls, I think I'm done with my dots. I have a ton. I did 4 different sets of colors. You could do more if you wanted to or less, but I want to show you the other thing that you can do as well. If you would like, and if you have time, I also have these bins of little pieces of paper, and they're all kind of already cut into square pieces, and we can use this to make a frame. So what you can do is you can take different squares and glue them along the edge. So some of them might be too big. If they're too big, you can make them smaller by cutting them with your scissors. And then all you need is a glue stick. You're going to open up your glue stick like this, twist it up to the top if it's not already twisted up. Okay. And then you just take the square that you would like to glue down and rub it on the edge of your glue stick and then stick it down. Now, there's a lot of places where my paint goes all the way to the edge, and I'm just going to skip those spots. So I'm going to pick different squares and go all the way around my edges. All right, boys and girls, I went around all of my edges that I had room with either some little rectangles or some squares. They're all different sizes, which I think is kind of interesting. And even in some of the spots where there wasn't a lot of room, I was able to cut shapes to fit, which ended up turning out really awesome. So If you don't have room for this, don't worry about it. Or if you have a lot of oil pastel, the oil pastel is hard to make these stick to. So if they're not sticking down, it might be because you have too much oil pastel, and you might want to just stick to just doing your dots. But you may do both. You can just do one or the other. Just be careful if you paint first that you might end up touching the paint when you're gluing your squares down and getting it on your hands a little bit. So be really careful of that. And I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. Just put all your supplies away, and I will see you next time.